Yeah, there we are. Well, we're being very informal, so we're just going to open the meeting and get started and welcome everybody to the meeting tonight. Appreciate your attendance and your participation in our neighborhood here.
You know, talk a little louder into your mic, dear, please.
Right up here.
Oh, perfect, perfect, yes. That's the
This for a
place.
living, so.
Please, yes, thank you.
You bet. And I'd like to welcome everybody here. And I would like to start off just to turn some time over to Rachel, and we're going to talk about public works and the parks that are taking place right now, what's happening. So I'd like to turn some time over to that, but before we get started, just open question here, because I'd like to talk to everybody in our neighborhood. How are you liking the new program? Things working out okay? Are you feel like you're being represented? Are you being communicated to in a timely fashion? Do you feel like you know what's going on and receiving the information that we're trying to get out to you? Well, you know, it's just, I was just mentioning that we feel like a little short on people here. Oh, I'm right here. Okay. Great, so here's go ahead.
Okay, we had some questions for Public Works. The first one was we wanted updates on the sewer lift station. And so this is what they had sent me on this. This is from Gary Calder, the Public Works Water Division Director. The lift station next to the Regional Sports Park is under contract to be completed by July 1st, 2023. He did follow up with the contractor to make sure this date can be achieved, and he was told that it will be completed on time. And then I didn't know if you were aware, did you know that on the Provo City website, you can see construction projects done by Public Works, and you can kind of find updates on those? And so this is from the website saying that they have lots of information on there, and I'll show you really quick how to get to that. So if you go on the Provo City website, under departments, you're gonna click on Public Works. And then if you go down to the bottom of the page, it says here, click here to view a map of the Public Works construction projects happening in Provo. It's gonna bring up a map of all Provo. It's gonna show you what's going on now and what's in the future. And so you can kind of zoom in and kind of see what's going on. And so if there's certain projects, if you're like, oh, what's going on here? It'll tell you, oh, they're gonna fill in cracks in the road. This is gonna be happening between April and August, and it'll give you who you need to contact in case you have questions. So that's for the whole city. So it's a really nice way. So if you kind of wanna know what's going on, you can check that map. And it'll tell you who you can contact in Public Works if you have questions. And then our next thing that we had was, we had questions on 2470 West, the light at 2000 North, and the connection from Lakeview Parkway to Geneva Road. And so this was the response from Public Works on these. So 2470 West, the extension of 2470 West into the regional park is scheduled to be constructed next summer before the opening of the park. So that's something in the future. And this was just me doing a map. I'm not sure exactly how far that's going to go, but that's right there is about where 2470 West is. And then traffic signal light at 2000 North and Geneva Road, right there at that corner. This is a Utah Department of Transportation project. They are scheduled to be completed with this project late spring, early summer. So that should be coming up. And then the 2000 North connection between Lakeview Parkway to Geneva Road. This is a city project. The city has purchased all the needed right-of-way for this connection. However, they're still several years away from completing this project. So that won't be happening anytime soon. And that's what they had on that. And then we also had some question on parks, an update on the regional sports park. And so this was the update that we had gotten from the Parks Department. They kind of gave some Background and overview, so the latest update, soil import continues to raise the site from the Utah Lake floodplain. Approximately 70% of the site is now filled to rough grade. Much of this soil was received from excavations at the Provo River Delta Restoration Project. Contractors are installing underground infrastructure and utilities, and this will continue through 2023. These include city stormwater, water, and sanitary sewer, electrical, and natural gas. So what's next? Development will continue from the north side and working to the south. Base soil material and the construction of hardscape elements, including parking areas, curbs, and pathways, will follow utility installation. Irrigation system installation and turf sod is scheduled for installation on 15 sports fields with a completion target of summer 2024. The southern 6 fields and 45 pickleball court complex will follow. And then a local group of citizens is actively involved in fundraising for a contribution to the pickleball complex and other grant funding opportunities to lower project costs. And then they have a little map of a little drawing of what the completed project will look like on that. And so if you want to read up more on the history of it, the background, kind of the overview, that is on the Provo City website on the neighborhood district page. You just click on the District 3 meeting date and click right here, and that's where you can find all that additional information.
Any questions?
Is that roadway associated with the Park a city project as well? Or is that a developer?
Oh, is that the 2470?
2470.
I'm thinking, let me see, what do they say on that one?
The public works.
It should be, yeah, because Public Works answered the question, so I think that is a city one. They didn't mention it being with a developer on that, so I'm just assuming that's Public Works.
Parks and Rec says they have nothing to do with the road.
I would assume they wouldn't. Usually roads are Public Works, but I'm not positive on any of that.
Does Public Works have any input on the proposed 8 North I-15 interchange?
I'm not sure. That's a question we can ask Public Works and see on that. I mean, these questions this question I got from Public Works. And so Becky might have an answer to that.
Are you talking about widening of the road, or what are you talking about? Interchange?
The on-ramp at 8 North, proposed on-ramp. What have you heard from the state?
There really is no proposed interchange at this point. What they have to do is an environmental study, and the environmental impact study goes from Center Street all the way to University Parkway. And so what they do is, preliminary to this, they're supposed to ask for citizen input, and the citizen input is supposed to be they take that very seriously. So anything that we put down on the citizen input, they have to investigate this. So that is a great opportunity for West Side residents to come in and join in and say, hey, we need more east-west access, better Center Street interchange, maybe a better bike and pedestrian walkway across Center Street. Those are good topics to bring up at that point. But they're going to study it all and see where the best location for it is. However, I was told that it keeps on getting pushed back because they only have a limited amount of staff and they have a lot of projects. So they've chosen to take the highest priority tickets, which is not H20 South yet, or H20 North, H20. And that has been pushed off, and it keeps on getting pushed back. But when it becomes a higher priority, then that will come to the forefront. But that's where we stand, and that's where we're at.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Thank you. Could you go ahead and click on the ordinance amendment? Who's going to be speaking on that since Aaron is not going to be here?
Let's see.
Unless you're going to take that topic as well.
Nah. Well, I thought the applicant was going to be here. The applicant had talked to me about, or coming in on Zoom, but I don't see them. On them, I have Matt Peterson and Rick Smith on Zoom, but I don't see that the Finches are on. And I don't see that Aaron is here. Let me share this screen.
So does the ordinance amendment is asking that all A1 can be a meeting halls for rent? That all A1 can be used for that?
It's been citywide in that.
Yeah,
That's what
so,
it says.
yeah, it is a citywide, this is the proposed new language. In that it's a conditional use. So conditional uses, the following uses and structures are permitted in the A1 zone only after a conditional use permit has been approved and subject to the terms and conditions thereof and the standards of section 14-34-250 Provo City Code. And that it's including meeting halls for rent and personal services, wedding chapel, and reception centers only. So it looks like they will need to get a conditional use permit, but they're asking for that to be added to the list of conditional uses for the A1 zone.
I wish either the applicant or Aaron was here to talk about this, because it sounds like though that as soon as the conditional use permit is applied, doesn't that permanently then change the A1 zone to have meeting halls and chapels?
Conditional uses are based on.
Oh, there's our.
Individual projects.
Aaron,
Yes.
would you like to speak to this now conditional use permit issue that we're discussing? Maybe we could answer questions about it and the scope of it and explain what the intent.
Sure, so I'm not sure what questions have been asked,
We're just
you've introduced the proposal, I assume, okay. So this would apply to all agricultural zones, A zones in the city. Having this as a condition use to everywhere that's zoned A1. That is the proposal. Conditional use, so if the text amendment was approved by the city council. Each one of these that's proposed on a lot in the A1 zone would have to go through its own conditional use permit process. Which is a staff review and typically administrative hearing for approval.
So explain, so as soon as a conditional use is granted, then it's permanently overlaid to that A1 lot, is that correct?
To that specific property, yes.
So that as soon as an A1 has an overlay for a conditional use for, say, a meeting hall, you can build a meeting hall in that A1 on that A1 property.
Yes, if the conditional use permit was approved on a specific property in the A1 zone,
And then permanently becomes a meeting hall, is that correct?
it could forever be a meeting, yes, even with change of ownership.
Just as a heads up, isn't that how we got our treatment center in our neighborhood?
Oh, there's two of them.
Yeah, that's how we got our treatment centers, our drug treatment centers, crime hubs in our neighborhoods. So just as a heads up.
Is this extending an existing program in A1 zones, or is it that it's adding a restriction to the conditional use requirement to something that already exists?
It'd be introducing a new use into the agricultural zone.
So the conditional use permit is something that already exists.
The conditional use permit process is something that already exists, but it's currently not either permitted or conditional. It was a particular use.
Then why don't they just change the zone?
That's not your question. Should I assume they want to continue farming?
You can still farm even though it's on something else.
Well, if you rezoned it, you're giving up your ability. If you rezone it to a non-agricultural zone, you're gonna be giving up that right.
So a meeting house with a garden in it.
Okay, we do have a comment online. This is from Matt Peterson. but the city wouldn't have discretion to deny the permit provided it meets the requirements for the permit. This essentially means that as long as they always submit a permit and meet the requirements for the permit, they will be permitted this use. Is that correct?
That's correct. So conditional use permits are just adding a step to what is a permitted use. The idea behind a conditional use permit is it's a conditional use because there might be adverse impacts associated with the use. So the conditional use permit is there to try to mitigate those impacts with conditions. So it's really hard to deny a conditional use permit in the state of Utah. You can typically place conditions on the use that would mitigate any concerns.
I think that, boy, this takes a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
I guess that the question is then, what are the conditional use? What is the definition of a meeting house? What is the definition of, I don't know, a personal service wedding tower? What conditions govern those types of structures or buildings?
So there aren't standard conditions for either one of those uses, meeting house for rent or personal services. So the conditions are case by case basis. If there's certain concerns that come with a request on the property,
Irrespective of the, and that is turned on. Irrespective of the parking, traffic,
so
any of that?
So exactly, so if a particular request came in on a property. This property wants to apply for conditional use for meeting hall. Then maybe someone brings up concern about parking or noise. Staff would place conditions on that permit. To hopefully mitigate those concerns, so it's case by case basis, there's no standard conditions. So maybe to answer that. The other question was, what truly is a meeting hall for rent, and what is what the other one's personal service, specifically wedding chapel? Yeah. Meeting hall for rent is exactly what it says. It can be leased out, rented out for any function by the property owner. So it acts as like a commercial for lease property for any type of event you want to do. I'm trying to think of an example downtown. There's the very small one just across the street from the lake, I believe it's south. It used to be the Bell Tower, the University Center was another one. You could rent them out for any really anything you can think of. The other use that's thought of here is specifically a wedding chapel. It doesn't have the openness to it that a meeting hall for rent does.
Why can't they just rezone the one piece instead of going all citywide?
Because they're requesting this be added to the A1 zone, which would apply to anywhere where there's A1 zone to be open up.
And what's driving that? What's driving that?
The proposal is to add it to that.
Right, what's driving it to make it available to modify every A1 within the city? What's driving that proposal?
The application.
That doesn't make any sense. It's just, you get an application and it just says, this is what we want to do.
Yes.
Can we say no? Can we just do it for your property?
So the Finches have requested to add this conditional use permit to the A1 zone, so staff reacts to that request.
And when will these be turned in for development?
So it went through staff review. We're currently waiting on the Finches to ask for it to come to hearing. Typically, that's automatic when we're recommending approval. In this case, staff wouldn't be recommending approval, so we let the applicant know that, and we left it to them if they want to move forward.
So you're recommending it not?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any other questions on that?
Here we have.
Sean, do you have any input on this?
Just on the conditional use, does that have to go to a public hearing, or are you saying that's approved at a staff level?
So if it was listed as conditional use right now, it would still go to public hearing. Typically an administrative hearing, just with staff. Sometimes if they're controversial, they go to planning commission. it's better forum for public.
But even at the,
Either one is public. Yep.
That was the same question I had, if there was public input available, so either way there is.
So this is still going before the committee, right?
It might not, it all depends on what the Finches want to do, if they want to move it forward, there's a negative recommendation, they can do that. I heard that.
Is there any way that you could get to Rachel so that we can get out to everybody else the outcome of their application so that we can notify everybody that what's going on so that we can speak to this, this proposal?
Yeah, the best way with a citywide application like this is to watch at the end of the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Because there won't be little postcards that you get for our property specific one. That's not the case here because that applies citywide essentially. So you have to watch the calendar, the planning commission calendars. See if it goes out. But I will make the added effort of relaying that to Rachel and we heard it too.
Not to be a negative Nelly or anything, but how many A1 properties are on the east of the freeway?
East of the freeway, there are some, but not as many as west. Most of them are towards the canyon in the northeast.
Yeah, okay, so for us, it would be very large impact for everybody on the east side and citywide. It would be a shrug of the shoulder, and it doesn't affect me.
That's perfect.
Okay,
So if they had to apply to change all the A1 lot or in order for them to get theirs changed, or can they apply to only change their A1?
That's a good question. The city isn't allowed to do use variances, so sometimes you can vary from the code on like numerical standards, setbacks, height, things like that. But for a use, you can't do that for use specific, so it has to be done this way.
by the way, and now Aaron, you're on staff with and zoning, is that correct?
Yes, I'm with the planning division.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot on that, Aaron. I found out last 2 weeks, so I just needed a quick question on this. I didn't know this about the west side, and this is something that's completely different that happened to the west side that we didn't I hadn't recognized. When you look at the zoning map for the west side of the plan, we treated it as every other plan within the entire city of Provo, where bubbles determine zoning. Apparently, on the west side, it's all hardline. All zoning stops and starts at very specific locations. Can staff please provide that information so that we do not, we're not caught in a situation that we were, when developers come to us and ask, well, we want to do this, it's not zoned for that. On your map, it has no zoning because there's a bubble here and a bubble here.
You're talking about the general plan. So the general plan has bubbles. The general plan is a kind of a guiding document. It's a regulatory.
It's not so.
So this is yeah, on the west side, the general plan is bubbles and the zoning is hardline properties.
Right, so, but in every other place within the entire city, all general planning is kind of bubbles. And if you fall within between two bubbles, the zoning drift based on the property, if your property falls in those gray areas. We'll have to talk about it.
Okay.
I just, when developers come to us and say, we want this, and they say, no, we can't go past this street. How do we discuss that with them? That's okay.
Okay, we have the Finches have now joined on, so let me see if I can get them to, okay, Judy, did you want to speak? You should be able to speak now.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's a time difference where we are, so we're a little slow joining in. If you could kind of let us know where we're at.
Do you want them to kind of just explain what their project is and what they want to do?
Sure.
Okay. I've got pictures of your before and after and kind of what you want to do, but if you want to kind of explain what your project is.
So we own a farm down in the west end of Provo next to Amelia Earhart Elementary School. Over over the last 3 or 4 years, our farm has been squeezed out, so to speak, so we can't make a living anymore on the acreage that we have. So we've expanded into a horse sporting operation there and are wanting to do another little bit of an expansion to try to make ends meet. We wanted to do an event center there on our property. We've had a lot of people over the years that have said that they would love to have a wedding on a farm or an anniversary or family reunion, all those kinds of things on a farm. So our plan was to make an event center, or at least take a look at that and see if it's feasible for us. And so that's where we're at with this procedure right now. We're just trying to see how we can move forward with that.
Okay. Did you want to open it up to questions for the Finches or?
Quick question for you, is it necessary to apply conditional use to Citywide instead of just to the property you wish to modify?
Yeah, they have to, remember you said that has to be citywide. The A1 has to be changed.
Can't do a use variance, so.
So they can't just get a zoning change.
I guess
They could do a zone change.
yeah, I guess the question
So
is,
yes, why
why-
not just do a zoning change
Yeah.
instead of a conditional use variance for all A1s?
yeah, why not just a zone change for your property instead of?
Because the first, again, the whole impetus for this is the fact that I've run a farm for my whole entire life. My dad ran one before that, the same one. We can no longer make ends meet because our acreage has been dwindled down. And so we're looking to find other alternatives. Agribusiness is a huge thing going all over the country. Farmers who produce vegetables, for example, are putting a restaurant on their farm to try to take the vegetables right from the field to a restaurant. Even here locally, you have corn mazes, you have pumpkin patches, things like that. Farmers thinking outside the box. For us, plan one was to do a horse boarding business, which we do, and we're successful with that. We would like to expand into this since we feel like we have the room and the space and it's a complementary business to the horse boarding. If we rezoned or asked for a rezone, we would lose our animal rights, which would eliminate the first part of the business. So all we're trying to do is accommodate the customers that we have who are down there on a daily basis. And it would be nice to be able to have other people come as well. And we have always had an open door policy with the community. There are a lot of farms in Provo where no one from the outside community ever steps foot on that farm. Ours has been the opposite. We have always had people coming to our farm. We've always been kind of a landmark down there, and we'd like to continue that. We have requests all the time that they would like to have farm related events on a farm, actually, instead of like we went to a wedding the other day in Linden, and it was at a barn venue. And it was right in the middle of a subdivision, directly across the street from houses. Parking was a chaos, everything, noise would have been an issue, lights would have been an issue. Where we're proposing to put this, the only thing that would be visible from the outside community would be the barn itself, which would be a beautiful facility if we build it. There would be no parking visible from the road. There would be really no noise issue or anything like that. It's out in the middle of a 10-acre property and hidden by other buildings and surrounding facilities that we have on the place. So the impact in the surrounding area and the neighborhood would be next to nothing. So it just seems like to us a real positive next step for our business.
We have another comment from Matt Peterson. He says a zone change could be even more disruptive. I don't think folks would necessarily want that to be commercially zoned.
Yeah, and like I said, it would undo the business that we already have that's up and running. We rely on those animal rights to do what we're doing. But I mean, as we look in the codes, when we look in the codes, it would be legal for us to have a bed and breakfast there. It would be legal for us to even have a care center for elderly people. Those seem to have very little tie-in to agriculture and probably a bigger impact on the potentially even negative impact on the community, where this seems to, what is Provo known for more than weddings? And if you've booked one lately, they're all 3 months out. You can't book one. I don't care how, I mean, I heard the other day that there's 156 of them in Provo, but we get requests all the time to have these type of events on a farm. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I've made a pretty good living finding a niche in farming where we did vegetables and then pumpkins. Growing 2 million pounds of pumpkins was not for everyone, but it was good for us. And it involved people in the community into our farm and brought them there, selling vegetables at the place, involved the community there. This is one more step that we can have that seems to tie in completely to what Provo is all about and have little to no impact negatively on the community.
And Barry, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Has the city not proposed any other type of negotiated hybrid of zoning for agricultural events?
I'm sorry, I couldn't really understand you very well.
Is there, can you hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, is there any way that the city, has the city made any proposals for a hybrid commercial or mixed use agriculture and commercial type of overlay or zone for your area for this so that you're not impacting all A1s?
That has never been discussed, to be honest. Like I said, from what I understand, the A1 is necessary for us because of the horse boarding business. We need those full animal rights. So
we have commercial residential mixed use. Why not have agricultural mixed use?
It doesn't exist, so we can offer something that doesn't exist.
So why can't you create something that would exist?
This isn't a staff proposal.
I understand. I'm just asking. It sounds like you're at an impasse and there's, you're saying denial, but then you're where can you go from here and help this person?
We react to the proposals we're given. That's what we're doing. If you had to post a new zone, we'd react to that.
I've got a question. What is the rationale in denying this proposal? I mean, because it seems to only be adding additional use for land. I mean, it adds additional property rights and removes none from anyone, correct?
So as staff, when we talked about this, there's concerns about, first of all, it fitting in with the purpose and objectives for the A1 zones. It doesn't really mesh with the stated purpose and objectives of the zone, chapter. And in addition to that, the impacts that this could have in some of these areas were something that the staff wanted to sort.
What sort of negative impacts?
Increased traffic, parking, a lot of police calls. We have dance halls in the city where we've had quite a bit of trouble. We had a planning commission hearing 2 weeks ago on possibly revoking one of these because of the trouble of spotting. So we didn't want to open that up to anyone's.
Isn't that the purpose of the conditional?
Right, we're appropriate. We don't feel like the A1 agricultural land is appropriate for this use.
Okay, so the modern urban farms that are spread throughout the United States is something we don't.
We're having a real hard time hearing anybody.
That's not what I said.
I'm trying to interpret it because that's around a lot of the United States, that's a very common urban farming.
Sure, so, so this isn't a forum for us to go back and forth on staff position. This is public hearing. So if it goes to public hearing, we'll have a separate board with other findings. I'm just here to answer questions on the process and the application itself.
So most of the complaints.
It takes, it turned on,
Yeah,
takes a second.
it's,
Yeah, did you
okay, so,
flip the switch up?
yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, there we go. So the complaints or the negative impacts are crime, and it doesn't fit with the intended purposes. Of the-
Right, the agricultural nature of the zone, and the objectives of that zoning. Didn't envision this type of use.
Rachel has a question.
Okay. Okay, wait a second.
So can I add a comment then?
Okay, let me do it. I have a question for the Finches from Matt Peterson. He's curious about specifics for mitigating noise concerns. It is adjacent to a residential area, and when he hears meeting hall, he imagines that could include events with DJs, bands, etc.
So is that question for Barry?
Yes.
Well, I guess the whole issue is we understand that there are ordinances. There are ordinances for traffic. There are ordinances for parking. There is ordinances for sound and music and all of that. And we would be required to live within those requirements. We're not asking for special favors. If we build a building, it's going to have to maintain the music and the loud stuff inside of it, right? We're not under any illusions that we somehow, because we built this building, we would be exempt from any rules that already exist. But I don't think we don't do the project because we're worried that something might happen.
Barry, I don't think there's a lot of pushback for your project. I think there's a lot of pushback for general amendment to the A1 to have all A1s available for conditional use modification.
So how would we, if there's not major opposition to the project, then how do we proceed?
That's precisely why I was pushing Aaron to give us a proposal for that, but apparently there's no such thing as a meeting hall agricultural zoning mixed use type of thing that they could do for you. So maybe we need to push community development to dig into their law books and come up with a better solution for you.
Yeah,
I think Sean
when
has
we were
the-
talking with community development, they made mention that the what are they called? The codes, the use, limited use codes or the permanent codes, whichever they're ones you're looking at, that they are woefully outdated and vague, so many of them. You know, and then you do find one that's very specific. Like, I mean, I can have a bed and breakfast on my A1 lot. I can have a facility for medical stuff. I can have a drug rehab center on my agricultural lot, but I can't have what I'm trying to build. It doesn't make, it seems like there's no rhyme or reason to it in my mind. So I'm all for trying to get some consideration on changing a code or creating a code, but I just don't know how to go about it.
Barry, am I?
It takes a few seconds.
Yeah, Becky.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Barry, I live by the mall. And I understand that there is noise ordinances. I understand there's parking ordinances. But I'll tell you what, every time that mall has some sort of concert or something really big, even though there are those things in place. It usually affects the older people, the kids, the people with small children and babies, and the people with pets. And it doesn't matter what decibels those are in, it bothers them. And so what concerns me is if you're holding events like this every single weekend, that is really bothersome, even though you are within that lot. It's really bothersome for the neighborhood that you have that's right to the east of you. And that's my concern, is because I've experienced it. I get the phone calls. I've been in the neighborhood chair there for almost 7 years, and it is really bad. So.
Well, so that sounds like to me some sort of an enforcement issue. I can't speak for how the mall does things. We can only speak for what we do.
Monitors.
What's that?
When you have events like that, and even the people I know by 7 Peaks. No, I think it's dying. Even the people I know by 7 Peaks, they have issues with it. It's legal, it's there, but it does not make the neighborhood friendly. It doesn't make it very livable. It's really hard to live next to something like that.
Well, we do live on 10 acres in Provo, which is about as big a lot as you'll find. We are so completely surrounded by cement walls and buildings that are 30 feet tall. So all of this would be hundreds of feet from the closest neighbor. And like I said, we've all gone to weddings at event centers. We've all done that. I was one at the other day in Linden that was right smack dab in the middle of a subdivision. So just as close as your neighbor's house is to you, this big honking wedding facility was there. Parking everywhere on the road and things. There's ones in Spanish Fork. All the neighboring cities have these things. So when I look at what we're trying to propose, and I say, look, we're not trying to squeeze it into a neighborhood that's tight. We're hundreds of feet away from anyone. We're surrounded by buildings that would match the style of the building. Only thing that would be visible from the road would be this beautiful barn we're going to build. All the parking would be behind that building and hidden from the whole community. So, I don't think we ever make decisions on what we're going to do because there might be something that could go wrong. That's what we have ordinances and enforcement for. If we're too loud, come write us a ticket. But you're going to have in our very same neighborhood that we're talking about, the city itself is building a 100-acre sports park. I would dare bet that there's going to be more noise and light and impact from that in the community and traffic and other things than anything that I would do with my 100-person event. So, I don't.
Could I also mention though that those of us in this area, 2 neighborhoods were impacted by conditional use overlays. And it was an extremely negative impact because of the conditional use that was granted. We had 2 assisted living centers turn into drug rehab centers. That's something that we did not want in our neighborhood, and that was something that was completely out of our control. That's kind of why we're feeling a bit of a negativity with regards to the conditional citywide application of conditional use to an A1. When these conditional uses were put into place, and because of the language used for assisted living centers also includes drug rehab centers. And so that negatively impacted the surrounding neighborhoods and the property values for the surrounding neighborhoods, and the crime that takes place at one of them is not very pleasant.
But again, we're not talking about that. I know there's a similarity there, but we're not talking. There's a similarity in that we're asking for some sort of an amendment, but what we're doing is far different than what that was. We're asking for weddings. We all go to weddings. All of us. We all have family reunions. We all have baptisms, birthdays.
Proposal sounds good. It sounds nice. It sounds wonderful, but it's the conditional use for all A1s, overlay of that. So that's the concern.
So
Okay.
is there a way then that we can take
Our
it
staff-
and limit it just to this project, or is there a way to,
Thank you.
instead of looking at it and for everyone, can we take it by a case basis? Is that not doable, or?
John, we have somebody in our executive board that was a developer, so maybe he can help a little bit and just clarify how that process takes place.
The process of a conditional use, or?
Not a process of conditional use, but for a hybrid, mixed use.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely come up with some solution. It's just another process you'd have to jump through with the city to come up with a zone that would fit that specific use that you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can hear you pretty good. So I appreciate that. Like I said, we're out of town, and if I've cut any of you off, I'm sorry, because it's hard to hear a little bit, but we will pursue with this with anybody that wants to talk to us about it. I'll just remind you, this is a family farm that's been around for decades now. We have been a good community member. We have invited people to our place always. And we want to continue that. That's all. If you think about, what could happen, what might happen, we live there, for hell's sakes. We live there. We are lifers there. I've lived there my whole entire life. I'm not trying to pull some fast one and at the expense of my neighbors. We're going to build something. We're going to build something that will be really nice.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that it looks like that farm is on that same road we were just talking about, that 2470 west, that will be extended into the regional sports park. So like Barry mentioned, it's going to be already a heavily impacted area that there's going to be in the next year or two, like large increase in traffic and visitors and events in that area anyways, right?
And drawing people to the west side is a good thing, and especially for an agro business in that sense. I don't think, Barry, there's a lot of pushback for what you're proposing. I think the staff is saying no, and I think the neighbors are kind of hesitant with regards to the blanket overlay of a conditional use on A1.
So when we come home, how would we proceed if we wanted to continue to pursue this? It sounds like it's not
Talk to you about this
completely negative and it's not completely positive. So how do we move forward?
We would like to chase it up the community development ladder.
Okay.
This might be.
Go ahead.
Can we just like leave this on? Is it?
Yeah, just leave it on, please.
Is it on?
Just give it a second.
Okay. Okay, I'll just talk loud. I don't know.
Tap, tap. There you go.
No, that's the
Oh, there we go. Just stays in. Okay. So this might have been a better question for Aaron, who left, but I know, you're obviously concerned about the drug rehab centers, which, I mean, I live right in the middle of both. Personally, it's not a huge concern for me, but I can see how it'd be a concern for people. So the question is, will this change make that drug rehab center an option for any A1 zoned thing? And if it will be, is there a way to, I mean, I just feel like the conditions may be limited.
That's the concern, that every A1 has the option to put an overlay. This is attached apartment overlay of a zone. And once they get, like the staff said, in the state of Utah, it's extraordinarily difficult to deny a conditional use. And so anybody that is now zoned A1 can turn it into any type of meeting house they wish to have, or event center.
Yeah, but to me, a meeting house or a dance hall and a chapel is not a drug rehab center in any way, shape, or form. So I'm honestly just skeptical that that is actually the case.
So
Because
I'll show you the.
So you're saying that those two places are due and the other place used this exact same zoning change to make a drug rehab center, that they're calling it a meeting hall,
Becky.
even though people live there. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think-
Use a conditional use permit
Okay.
process, not this.
Not.
So is it-
That's what I'm saying, it's specific when you could not build a rehab center.
No, but it's be something like what we have been seeing is what Aaron was saying, right? I mean, just recently, the city tried to revoke one of those conditional use permits because they had weapons brandishing in an area of the city. They had a lot of huge concerns. And that is for the meeting hall thing, right? So even though Barry Finch can say, I am here, I'm going to do what's right by my neighbors, he sells that, it still has a conditional use permit. Someone after him won't necessarily be as neighborhood friendly.
Sure.
And that is the concern, because it doesn't run with Barry Finch, it runs with his land.
Well, it's
But I think
citywide.
That
It's
would be-
citywide.
So you can go do a dance hall in your barn there, and dance halls traditionally in the city have not had great reputations,
Right.
and that's a
I
concern.
mean, isn't that a risk we all take? I mean, our neighbor can sell their house to a drug dealer. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm struggling with the concern, because now we know they can't turn it into a drug rehab center on this zoning, they cannot. So there can be no more drug rehab centers if that's the concern. And I feel like, just my opinion is, it's a little NIMBY-ish to be like, no, because our neighbor could be a drug dealer, our neighbor could be brandishing weapons. Like, I don't see a lot of A1 people jumping on this, number one. And number two, I just don't see it being a big issue, because people are generally good and people generally make good choices.
I disagree, just because at these kinds of events, you
At weddings?
have, pardon?
At weddings?
It's not just open to weddings, it's open to that, whatever is in that conditional use permit.
And there's a ton of
Yeah.
different applications for conditional use.
It's fine. I'm not concerned. It's okay that you guys are. I'm just saying, as a different perspective from someone who's lived in the community for a long time as well, I'm not concerned.
I'm with Barry. I like the idea. I'm with Barry. But when you say conditional, that is a whole plethora of different conditions that can be overlaid.
Sure, but it still has to be a meeting house or a chapel. It can be a drug rehab center. It can't be a big slaughter farm. Like there are conditions placed on that are just inherent in what the writing says. So I'm saying, I don't.
That's what we thought about the assisted living centers. And they're grouped into the same category.
So if Barry could have an assisted living center on his property, which he says he could now, then he could technically have a drug rehab center anyway, and so could anybody else.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the concern if they can do it already?
Again,
That's what I'm trying to say is we're proposing something that's very positive and we could do the other stuff already. We could start tomorrow on that. We could put a drug.
They don't have to use that. They
But-
can't use on that.
But they
Here's
can't.
the thing that I think needs to be mentioned, and nobody wants to hear the farmer cry boo-hoo. But the road that went in from East Bay to the airport impacted every farm in Provo, every one of them. Every farm had a road go through it. And so as somebody in that industry, it's a shame to put a farmer in a position where he has to either sell the property to a developer or not make ends meet. Help these farmers. I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one come to you and say, hey, look, we need some help to transition into another business. We can still make our family farm work, but we need your help and your consideration. I don't know if it impacts everyone in the future that's in the A1, but I know that these 33 farmers that have a road going through their, or have a road going through their farms, they're impacted right now. We're trying to find a way to hold on to these farms. Otherwise, 10 years from now, you're gonna have 0 farms in Provo. And you'll have 0 farms that provide any of the things that people say. How many of you have gone to the farmer's market and you say, oh, I just love doing that? Well, that's gonna be a thing of the past within the next 5 to 10 years if you can't help us transition into better uses for our property right now.
Barry,
And that's
Rachel, give you us our contact information. Would you please reach out to us? We do need to move on. I don't want to spend all evening debating this, and we'd love to talk to you more about this. Rachel,
Right. I just wanted to, we have City Councilor Travis Hogan is on Zoom, and he said that he can discuss with city staff on their appetite for creating a mixed-use agricultural zone, if that's something that the district would like to pursue. Okay.
yes.
And so I didn't hear that completely, but it sounded like that sounded like a good contact person. Could you send that to my phone? We can't hear everything perfectly.
I think that's a good option, but I do
That's
think,
Travis Hogan.
Travis, okay.
I do think a conditional use permit, especially if conditional use permits are already granted, such as the ones we've talked about, if those are already granted, then
No, they're not. That's what I'm saying. No, they're not already.
No,
conditional.
but he just said he said he knows he could.
So if he can already have an assisted living and a bed and breakfast, then there must be something in place already on the A1 zone. I think this does provide more options for those farmers to try to incorporate and keep that farm intact, if you will, rather than selling out to a developer who would just turn it into a house.
Yes.
Right? We'll look into that. I don't believe that is absolute, but let me look into that a little bit better.
So
I
would
need
be
to move.
completely opposed.
We need to move this on to Barry.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your vision. I believe that you have a really good vision for where to take the culture from the west side. I really appreciate that.
Okay, I appreciate your meeting, and like I said, I hope I probably was rude because it's hard for me to hear. So anyway, thanks for your talks today.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
Becky, did you want to talk about the grant program? And any proposals for a grant? Part of our meeting tonight, we would like to talk about the matching grant program and any outstanding projects that we believe that would benefit us on the west side. And Becky, you said you have one project that you're considering?
Not that I'm considering, I have other times. I'm proposing, if someone wants to take it. That's great, but I don't have time to do this.
Who wants to be voluntold?
You want to be voluntold?
Oh, please don't.
Who would be a good contact person? Because I think a lot of people are just hesitant because we don't know what on earth to do. Like, how do we even start? So
Rachel's a great
contact person with
resource.
the city to find out how we even start and what we do.
Well, okay, so number one, all of those applications are online. So can we show that? My eyes are really bad. And the best way that my father has always taught me to do things is to start digging in.
Yeah, here you
I know.
Okay.
Those are
Like you.
Try this one.
I think it doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Do I have to hold it like I'm gonna
Yes.
see each
Yeah.
other? Like right
there.
Okay, the best way I would suggest is to just dig in, and then once you run into something that you don't know what to do, at that point, call Elizabeth at the council office, because Elizabeth is over this part of the program. She still is, right?
We are transferring that. That will be, my mic will work. So we're going to take it away from Elizabeth and bring it to me. We're working with legal right now. Once we have everything ironed out, we will do a training session with all the district board members on exactly how this works, because we're kind of doing a little bit of changes with the new program.
But like we've talked about over the many times that we've done this, I don't know that it's a great idea to submit yet. I think it's a great idea to figure out what you want to do, start getting the hours in. And then go ahead and submit it all together. That way you don't have to get those obligatory hours. And then turn around and get the real life hours. The only real big caveat that I've seen with this is once you start down this road, you have to complete it, or they'll penalize you by not allowing you to do another project again, right?
Now, what do you mean by that?
From what I've read, let's say I get halfway through the project, I've submitted everything and I don't complete it, then I can't do another project next year. Is that going to change?
That has not been in any of our discussions. Was that just because like for a neighborhood? Or,
Yeah, I wonder if it's because you have so many neighborhoods competing for the pot.
from
And
what?
once you-
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. I haven't heard of that being a problem. So, I mean, I can see it being frustrating if you don't get the project done because you have to get it done within the fiscal year. And so that's kind of where you're penalized, is that you don't get the funds. If you don't finish it within the fiscal year, so that's July 1st through June 30th. But even then, if it's something where you're almost done or you're really going at it, they'll carry over the funds if we get approval. But I can see if it's something where you start and you just kind of fizzle and it drags on for years, then I can see them going, no, but I don't see that happening.
And you have a multiple phased project where every year you renew the funds for the next phase of an already proposed project?
We have talked about that in that, but it would have to be distinct phases. Like, let's say you're doing something for a park. So phase 1 could be a cement slab, and that could be that fiscal year. And then the next fiscal year, phase 2 could be picnic tables or benches on that cement slab. But that little part of it would need to be done within the fiscal year.
Right, very distinct start and stopping points.
Right.
Kind of a spiral development from project management.
So, and this may be something that you're.
No.
There we go. As far as if you are this year project, right? Will, if we say was it $5,000 that we potentially get? If we 1 year use $3,000 to pour the cement slab, does that $2,000? No, okay, so we cannot carry money over.
No.
So we could never build like a bathroom anywhere because we would never be able to get enough money to do that.
Bathrooms are incredibly expensive. That's not a matching grant project. That's, what was that?
Pavilion.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just we're thinking small.
as far as park quality equipment, $5,000 is not gonna get you very much.
Two swings.
No, and the way that Aaron has done it in the past, Aaron Scowen, they've done sections and then they get donations. And I am not a good person soliciting concrete donations or, and so they've been able to do, how many years did it take them to do their park, Lions Park?
That was over, because they kind of did little sections, like they did that, the solar lighting, and then they did the plaques about different, like if you stand here, you can see these mountains, they have all these cute plaques going around.
Well, they also have
Yeah.
a trail that they did. too,
Yeah.
and they did that piece by piece. But $5,000 doesn't buy you very much concrete.
Yeah.
So they did get donations, they got people to donate, they got people to help lay the concrete and all that different stuff, because he had those, well, the people in the area had those connections. And I think it's better to do it this way, because there's a lot of connections with everybody here that we could go ahead and have people help donate or make those projects funds go further. But if you do have that dollar per dollar, they still doing that, then only so much percent has to be done with service hours. So they still want service hours, but you could also match the dollar per dollar to a certain amount, right?
But it has to be with donated goods. They're not allowing you to fundraise anymore. We used to have people that would just shell out money. And the city's not allowing that anymore, but it could be, let's say you have a professional landscaper. How much they normally would get paid, you could count that, or if someone's, allowing you to use their tools like that, you can figure that in for
Or
the
a
matching
donation of
funds.
concrete.
Yeah, donations from concrete, you would
Just like tap it, you have to get some key.
do that. You can't just do, we're just gonna give money, you're not allowing that anymore, but. So it's either donated time or donated goods.
What's the timeline as far as when you guys think you'll have everything ironed out and be ready to do a training for the districts?
I know, this has been long in coming. We're hoping this, probably in the next 2 weeks. We'll have something going and so that we can do training. We apologize that it's taken this long, but we've had to go through all the documents and then have legal look over everything.
But I like to point out that July 1st is still 2 months away. So this is just kind of a gear up. And from my experience, winter kind of sucks to do service projects. So you want to get started on your service projects now. Get those together, start collecting those hours. And because you'll have spring and you'll have summer into fall. And then winter is just gonna kind of die down. And if you can get all your service hours and everything in before the snow hits, you're better off. And then all you have to do is submit everything. And you're all okay. I know at first, for me, it took me a good 6 months to get to that application because it was just so awful. But I know Elizabeth has made it a lot easier. And I honestly think it'll be so much easier if you do the service beforehand before you turn on the documentation in.
Who keeps the service hours? Who accumulates the service hours?
I would suggest some kind of a Google Doc.
Who's banking our service hours?
It usually the secretary or the board would be keeping track
Ariana?
of that. And so this is what the application looks like. It's just online. So if you ever want to look it over and kind of see what you have to do. And so there's kind of different areas you need to go into. Like you have to have a budget, kind of your volunteer hours, your in-kind donations. And then, yeah,
That's the meeting.
that's the meeting. Because you want to have everyone agreeing to do it. So kind of the process is someone comes up with an idea, they present it in a meeting like this. And everyone does a vote if they want the person to, fill out the application and pursue it. And then the person fills out the application. And then that application gets sent to the board members. They look it over, make sure it's complete, make sure it's something they want to do. They think if it's a good idea, then they agree to it. And then it gets sent to the council office. And then the council director, Justin Harrison, and the council chair, Patrice McKay, make the final decision on that.
So what I did is I went into sheets, right? And I did the spreadsheet. And I put the name of the project, how many hours they put in, all the required information that you have to have for the service, and they have to sign it at the end, and they put down their hours, and then I put totals on the bottoms of the sheets. And then I just collected those hard copies. So every time we went to a service project, kind of like you sign in over here, we had people report their hours. You can give them out to people as long as you give them back. And then I would just scan those in and just make sure that the secretary keeps track of every single one of those pages. That for me was a lot easier, because it's mobile, you don't have to worry about people signing things on your physical phone or anything like that. But, scanning them in or taking a picture of them or even turning the physical hard copy into secretary is probably your best idea. Now, where can you get ideas for service projects? Parks tells me they have tons and tons of projects that they are willing to give you ideas for. They do have a volunteer coordinator. I don't know who it is at this point in time. But they do have like a trailer full of tools. So they can bring out the gardening tools, gloves, all the rakes, shovels. And he said, as far as like the Lakewood neighborhood, they would take care of the trash on the Lakeview Parkway because they have all the way to the freeway that they have to keep clean. So there's lots of different things that can be done. A lot of church groups will also do service, and those can also be recorded. Yeah, Rachel had a lot of those different clean up the river. There's always clean up the river
Right.
things. If people show up and just start signing in, we just had, just over the last weekend, a bunch of group of people in Lakeview North and Lakeview South. And some of Fort Utah got together with all the big cleanup along Geneva Road. All those hours can count. And all the hours that you spend getting the service projects together, doing your application, let's get it changed.
No, well, yeah, so probably like doing your research, stuff like that, you could probably count, but I think they're getting away from that. I think they want it to be actual service hours. For counting towards that, not, paperwork. They want it to be actual service hours. If you need ideas for what they've done in the past, on the page under FAQs, it says, will the neighborhood district program have matching grants available? If you do the click here for an interactive map of past projects, it'll take you to this map here, and you can kind of click on there and see what was done. They're like, oh, okay, so they did sprinklers in that neighborhood, or the entryway and signage. And you can kind of see what's been done in the past. If you're this one, they did sidewalks, to kind of give you some ideas of what to do. I do know for the new project, they're kind of leaning towards your service hours being mostly about that project. Where I know it does make it hard, so I'm trying to get them away from that.
I mean,
Because depending on the project, because if it's something in a park, there's not a lot you can do in a park. And I've brought that up. So in that case, we would need to do something outside, but they're still fine tuning it. But a lot of times you guys do parks. It's really not a lot you can do in a park, but we're still trying to figure it out.
So in Lakewood, they tore up the old, originally a non-existent worn down asphalt trail. That was part of the service. Painting the benches that needed some love. There was also a lot of service, laying grass after everything was moved. But you're right. I think community building is more of what in the past it has been, that's the service has been, is community building. Not necessarily putting your service towards your project. I think that's really super difficult.
Yeah.
I think community building can be done with, a lot of different projects within the neighborhoods. Picking up trash along the parkway, but printers always gets a lot of dump stuff on it. Taking that to, some kind of, does the city help provide for dump passes and stuff if we do trash collection, or is that gonna be something within the budget, $1,000 budget?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't discussed that, so we'll ask about that if dump passes. But I'll bring it up because that's a good point, because it could be that your project is in Lakewood, but since we are a district, maybe you want your cleanup activities to be in Provo Bay and, in different areas. So to make it more of a district project.
Community building.
No, that's a good point.
Because community building is a big portion of what this program is supposed to entail.
Right.
That's what I'd advocate for. I also advocate for just when you're in the back, because $5,000 does not buy a lot. Of that. I know it's painful, but we're looking at residents coming together for a common purpose. It's worth it.
So I'll kind of answer a couple questions. I totally think you're right. There are projects where you're not going to be able to get all your service hours. I think the intent is
having some kind of service hours go towards the project, not just no one showing up for the project at all and it being like a hired out service. I'll give you an example. There's, District 1 is doing a sprinkler project in, like a pocket park. And so we really wanted them to have some kind of part of that, not just, all right,
I know.
we'll do all our service other places, but not show up at all the day of. You know, and someone will come and install the sprinklers. You know, a cleanup there, obviously, they weren't going to install the sprinklers, they had gotten some quotes for companies to do that. But they could do cleanup at the park, doesn't have to be the same day, but it's just something to involve it. But you're right, community building is a huge part of that, and there's so many areas that may not be the neighborhood you live in, but are adjacent and are not part of the district that will really allow you to get to know your neighbors. On the budget side, we've kind of noodled this internally, but that has come up from a couple of districts and don't come with me with pitchforks, but want to get your temperature. What would you think of having all districts submit for a project, but only one being approved and they get all $25,000? We thought that could be, if there's not a budget increase, is that an option? And then in the next year, that district wouldn't be eligible. Yes.
That would be my concern, is that it goes to
Yep.
one part of the city every single year because they have this project.
So why not just rotate it? For those who are ready now, do it. And then just rotate it through.
I would guess that no one is ready right now for a $25,000 project, but that's.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that even if you voted on it, or, you know, you guys voted on it, nobody's ready for a $25,000 grant, or would it be a $50,000 project? And so that would be really hard to do.
But couldn't you just allow everything to stand with the 5,000 projects this year and the next fiscal year start that so that everybody's prepared and thought process thinking about that?
If he taps it, it takes it away from you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this was just something we talked about in a staff meeting, so it would take some approval from council and some thought there, but it is possible, so. If that's something that districts think is a good idea, we can definitely take that to the council.
Being someone that has done a couple of these, I would go for that, just because for me personally, it's exhausting to keep on doing this year after year after year. So if you have to gear up for one huge project, as long as I don't have to put in, I mean, 500 hours is already a lot to collect from people, right? So, I mean, as long as I'm not trying to get 2,500 people hours to volunteer, I think that's a great solution, but once you start requiring more and more and more of these service hours, I think and matching things, I think that's gonna be harder and harder to get.
But if you have 5 years to accumulate. those
Yeah,
2,500 hours,
accumulate in
if
5
you could
years.
Accumulate those 2,500 hours in 5 years, then we could be set, have everything banked up, have a project laid out, a project line, all of the volunteer, the professional services, everything lined up, and then pull the trigger.
I think Rob has a comment. I think he wants us to pay for sidewalks on 10.
I think. We're all listening to that.
Well, $25,000 isn't gonna do that. But that's, I guess my thought, being in the engineering and construction industry, is even $25,000, I think if this is more about the community building and doing simple stuff that kind of perk up an area. I don't know, $25,000 still doesn't go that far, and I don't know, maybe my comment only applies if I'm the one volunteering to do it, but I think in terms of community building, 5 years. You know, that's the purpose of this, the intent of this program, and it sounds like it kind of is. Waiting until every 5 years is kind of defeats that purpose.
Well, not if you're doing volunteer hours throughout the 5 years and having community kind of build up to it. You're getting people together to do service hours, you're getting people to do the planning, make sure that we're all on board on the right project, that sort of thing. I agree with you. Yeah, you definitely 5 years is gonna be kind of long, but
Yeah, we were also thinking an idea that was thrown out was maybe a $10,000 project every other year.
Except for a $10,000 project isn't gonna buy half of a bathroom.
Nothing's gonna buy a bathroom. How much is the bathroom at the park?
$550,000.
It's $550,000 for that bathroom at Memorial Park.
Or $10,000, we're gonna buy half of a pavilion, right?
Get
I
you a
think-
few buckets.
I guess it'll get me one of those porta potties we can pay for.
it's a concrete pad.
That's not, go, okay, let me just go to our proposal here. I think Becky's taking us on a dark turn. Okay, this is the mini Lakewood Park. As you can see, the only thing that we have here, the only thing is the playground equipment that we replaced a few years ago, and this was one of our matching grant projects. Obviously, $5,000 did not buy that little set, but, you know, we did go join with Parks did a lot. And that was our contribution, because we did go to them first and we said, hey, what can we do? And they said $5,000 will buy you 2 picnic pads and tables if you're lucky. And then they came back and they said, hey, why don't we change this project into something better? And so now we do have an area that lacks restrooms, it does lack pavilions, it does lack everything, but those picnic pads are still within that $5,000 reach. And it would be a great amenity to have on a little park that really does not have anything that really does get used. And so that is my proposal, is that the $5,000 goes to this little park. And this was pre-pandemic, so probably get 1 pad. And maybe if we're lucky, the picnic table. But 1 or 2 of those would be great. And the process with this would be someone would have to meet with Parks and Rec and say, hey, we want to do picnic tables here at this location. How many can we get? What is the best location to have them in? And will you approve that? Because they do need to sign off on the paperwork, as this is something that can go in there. And then, but first, like Arian said before, am I saying her name right? Is Arian?
The secretary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she said before, the easiest route to do would be to get all of your service hours in, because the way I did it was too hard. But that was the only way I knew how to do it, because that's how everything was spelled out. Get your service hours in first. And, you know, make sure you know what project you're going for, because it's gonna take a while for all that planning to go into play. And then submit your application with all those service hours packed. Otherwise, you gotta go and get people to pledge hours, and you gotta go back. You gotta get all the hours that they've done, and it's twice the work. Any questions?
We vote on this now?
Yeah, I think we're open to open discussion now in regards to what type of projects you feel this is a good project for. Anything else? Any other concerns for the District 3? Rob, if you're gonna come to our meeting, you gotta bring 1,600 flat maps. How we're going to, the maps you showed me.
I don't work at the city anymore, so. I can't read that to you.
No.
So do we, it sounds like Becky made a proposal. Do we vote and say, yes, we want to go with this proposal for our matching grants? Is that what's, I mean, I don't know. Yes.
Yeah.
Would you guys like
Why
to
do you
go
make
this
that-
project and then move forward with it? But we would need somebody to run the project.
Exactly, that's my.
That, yes, we're gonna vote, and are you gonna volunteer?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so you want to volunteer as the project lead?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to vote then on this project?
Why not?
This affects only one neighborhood. it would be at the current rate of $5,000 and the volunteer hours for this. So this is completely just for the 1 year, not the other proposals originally. We would like to explode it. So
This
if
probably
you
won't
want,
even be this year, I don't think we probably have to.
we would have to
start
have
this
the application
next
in
year.
and everything taken care of starting July 1.
Yeah,
Are you up for that?
yes, depends on when this training goes through.
What's the train?
We've got to get everything ironed out for the matching grants, so we could do the training for the executive board members.
And lunch will be served as well. So it'll be a lunch training.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right now, it's pretty much just fill out the application, which is on the website. Just,
Right, but it sounds like Becky said, like, don't do that until you have all the service hours to submit everything. And so what I'm saying is I have no idea what counts as service hours, how to record it, who to give it to, why, like, I literally, like, I don't think any of us know anything
right.
about the matching grant program. So that's what I'm saying is like, you can't just hand me a file and say, I don't know. Know what I mean,
Congratulations,
what I'm
yeah.
doing.
Hey, Brooke, if I can find it, I'll go and try to dig, because it's been pre-pandemic since I've done one. If I can find my volunteer sheet, I'll scan it in and send it over.
And what got volunteer projects as well? Where to find the projects? The volunteer.
That's pretty simple. All you do is call. Justin, do you have who the volunteer coordinator is?
At Parks.
At
And
Parks.
Becky, I think what we're saying is we don't even know what we don't know.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I don't know what I don't know. I have.
I think that's where you're gonna have to start. You're gonna have to start first. The first step here is to get your project, right? The second step I would do is call Doug Robbins over at Parks and Rec. See if you can set up a meeting with Doug Robbins. He'll probably get John Gunderson in on that one. And talk to him and say, hey, you voted to do this project for this on a park. This is our idea. Is it feasible? Can we do this? Okay, and then talk to them about possible volunteer opportunities. Okay, the one who I talked with, who is over the Lakewood Park, his name is Mike Hoffman. Okay, and he's over several parks. I'm not sure how many. Do you know how many he's over?
I don't.
But Mike Hoffman is actually over the Lakewood Park. And he's the one that told me that there's several volunteer opportunities. But once you talk to them, you know, talk to
They have
Doug.
to approve it, right, before we can even do anything.
Before, yeah,
Parks has to say, yes, you can have a picnic table.
yeah, before you can do a picnic table, if you decide that somewhere here, then I would suggest start doing your volunteer hours anyway. And then waiting for that approval process for later. But then start recording those hours, right? Start recording what project it is. I created a sheet thing that has all of it in it. I don't know where it is now. I think it was maybe Microsoft Excel, but if I find the actual thing, I'll send that over. If not, I'll see if I can find one of my sheets that I printed off. And then you just total up those hours and it's $10 an hour. Is that what it is now?
Correct.
So that's 500 hours for $5,000. So you want to make sure you keep track of that number.
But it can be any service project in our district, right? So like if.
In the
if
district.
group
Only in the
goes-
district?
Yeah, you want to keep it in your district because it's the community building.
Community building would be in the district.
Okay.
So
So if like a youth group goes out and cleans up trash along Lakeview Parkway, we can count every single one of those kids 1 hour.
in
Like
those,
15 kids,
Mhm.
they're,
in the past, that's the way that it's been. Yeah, you just want to make sure that it's community building, like it's community service. It's not necessarily.
you know, just through the church, but I'm just saying like, youth groups do a lot of service.
Yes.
Might as well tap into that.
Well, and then a lot of people over the years have tapped into in fact, if you go back to the Lakewood project, that Lakewood sign was actually a scout project.
Yeah, using my word.
So a lot of those, like I told you, the painting of the benches, that was actually a scout evo project. The tearing up of the pathway to Lakewood Park, that was actually a scout project. The actual laying of the sod after we moved everything, that was actually a neighborhood project. So, yeah, they have cleanups everywhere.
Can we make our own projects, or do we have, like, does that make sense? Like, can we say as a district, like, okay, let's get our district together, or, you know, our.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely, yeah.
I think that's a great thing to do, but if you're gonna say, hey, my suggestion, if you're going to say, hey, the Provo River Trail is kind of trashy, you know, which we have a lot of groups that do that, we wanna go clean that up, clean up along the river. What I would suggest where that is parks jurisdiction and parks property, number one, it would be great to reach out to them just to let them know what you're doing, but number two, it would be great to just ask if their volunteer coordinator could come out, because they do have tools that a lot of people don't have that would like to have, like your shovels and stuff like that.
So we can't do things as a district, we just need to, it's just helpful to let parks know.
Yeah,
The
and
volunteer coordinator.
yeah, and they might even send a volunteer coordinator over to just make sure that everything's done the way they want it done, which is fair, right?
I think we're done. Any good meeting ends sometime. So is there any other things that want, take a vote on the project? Okay, all in favor for the project? We'll take a positive vote. All in favor?
How many do we have, Brian?
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
How many online? 10?
How many online?
We have 3 online right now.
Are they affirmative?
I'm waiting to see. We've got 1 hand raised. At least, well, one of them.
So 11 out of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 12, and so 15, so 11 out of 15? Is that fair? Does everybody agree with that? 11 out of 15, I'll put that in
Put that in the notes and
Arian's notes.
say, let's move forward, but let's continue to garner more support throughout the neighborhoods. So. Any other points of interest that you would like to discuss as a neighborhood? I would like Rob to bring his mouse, but apparently he doesn't work in the city anymore. But that was a big, you have no idea how big that was. 1600 West, the stubs are here tonight. 1600 West is widening. And they will be moving poles. So. But prepare for that. And I've been looking for the digital copy of that. I have never found a digital copy for that, so.
Yeah, so if you call it Gordon, I'm sure they'll send it to you.
I would love to get that contact information, but I appreciate that. They had 3 proposals for widening 1600 West, because it's going to be a major egress for the junior high before it's completed. However, they still don't have a project timeline on that yet, do they? Or when you left?
For funding, of when that's gonna be funded, nope.
They said they have no money that they might do the east side of the sidewalk.
Well, yeah, they'll put a sidewalk down on the east side, but they don't have any money to move the poles. And moving the poles.
That's right for the sidewalk.
They don't even have money for sidewalks, and every developer is putting in sidewalk. Hickory. So yes, all along there, but they do have a plan now. So, and part of that plan is to move the poles on the west side. So that is part of the plan, and that was going to be $2.5 million. $6 million. So,
Oh, I don't know. All I can tell you is when I went to a community council meeting, 1600 West is not on the safe routes for the junior high. It's 6 up into, what is the opening on 6th of your neighborhood?
And no, what's it?
It's the egress out of.
That is from 600 West.
Yes, the egress out of.
It's the north.
It's about 1400.
Yeah, it's the north egress out of Crenshaw, not the west egress. So they don't even have 1600 West as a safe exit
No, it's
out of
not.
the junior high.
No, it's not.
Because they don't want people using it.
No.
Well, it's, so the safe route is the way people, kids can walk in and out of there. So it's not that cars can't use it, it's just.
Right.
that-
That's just-
It's a designated, this is the, where we're going to focus on
This
the
is the
sidewalks.
safest route that we- yeah.
In and out.
And in fact, the junior high, the middle school, they asked the city if they could put up signs directing them to stay on 6 rather than go down 1600. The city's response was, we can't tell somebody they can't go down public egress or public right of way, right? But they can put safe route to school this way.
So they're gonna keep the buses on?
They wanted to put the buses down there, but I told them that that was a very narrow road. And Terry said that's a bad idea to have the buses cross there, especially when you're having traffic come in off of 6 down there.
You know, 1600 West is just an alley. Okay, it's not really the street.
It's not safe now to walk.
Honestly, it's not, it's just an alley. In fact, we did the national survey. It barely qualifies for an alley.
So from what I understood, they were gonna try to get the bus route to go through 1100 versus 1600, because I told them, I said, that's just not a good idea. And so did Terry. She's like, you can't have the buses going through all this pedestrian traffic.
And the big problem that we were talking about was a center turn lane on 11th West.
Yeah,
That's something that's gotta happen through there.
but the caveat is that road's not very big, so that will most likely take away parking from anywhere we put in a turning lane, correct?
Yeah, I mean, but that's gonna be, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, so I can either confirm or deny, but
Rob cannot confirm or
with
deny. that was pretty
99.9%,
And
my
so,
guess would be that yes, but that's, I mean, where the turn is on 890, that's in front of the school property and the church.
Yeah,
And
just
so
north of
there's,
the church,
it
yeah.
doesn't need to be,
well, the request was from 1020, and then there's not just my request, but Terry also was requesting it. That there's a turn lane, just because 6 where it hits 1100,
If there's
gets
not-
backed up if there's not a designated turn lane.
if there's not a center turn lane, everybody's gonna swerve into the bike lane.
Right.
And- Even
They can.
Yes, the concern I had is that any northbound traffic that's swerving the bike lane or the parking along 1600 or 11th West without a center turn lane, and that would just cause all kinds of havoc, so that was a concern.
But the one thing that did come up, and PTA mom was concerned that there's no enforcement of the no stopping, no standing, no parking signs at the high school. But if no parking signs have to be put up anyway, city parking would prefer those because they spell out it better for the parent than the no parking sign. They're enforced the same, is what Sandy told me. So, but if there's a preference, she would prefer the no stopping, no standing. But the caveat with that is per state law, if you have a passenger in your car, you can pull up to a no parking zone and let that passenger out and go away. You cannot, even if you're in the car, stop and wait for someone to come out and get into your car. Now, if your passenger is standing on the sidewalk, you can stop and put that person in your car and drive away. So I think that's some of the confusion that is going on at the high school, is that no stopping, no standing, technically, legally you can.
And nobody enforces it, so it doesn't really.
Well, she said that they enforce it, but they don't want to see happen, and what my concern was on 1100 West is that's designated as a big corridor. And you don't want it backing up traffic, you don't want somebody sitting there for 3 minutes, especially if the lane's not big enough to accommodate a parked car and a travel.
And what's going to happen is everybody's gonna pull into the church parking lot and then shoot across the river. Yeah.
Which is gonna happen anyway.
And
They're putting chains up.
well, I talked to the facility director, that's their last thing they want to do. But I told them right now that the construction workers are not respecting the parking lot. And that it's gotta stop. The city has got to stop having people parking in that parking lot.
It's not the city, it's the district, right?
Well, the school district. Whatever agency is violating
What
the
about the
private property.
left turn from 6th onto 11th? Because the road is very wide, right underneath the interstate, under the bridge.
Yeah.
And then it jumps left.
It's really small, and so that area between there and the train crossing is relatively short. There's a lot of vehicles coming there, and there's not really a very good left turn. And so that whole area is gonna get backed up.
So I did put that on my requests, however, that is not safe routes to school, that's more important. And so that's probably more of seeing how they stripe it. Striping, from what I understand, isn't very expensive, right? So,
Even if you don't declare that, people are still going to just use the roads. Children who are walking or riding bicycles to and from school are still gonna go wherever they just want to go. right?
well, the biggest concern right now for the district is crossing those railroad tracks. That is our number
Oh,
one
yeah.
concern. And so what we did discuss is having someone there. Because those trains can be on those tracks for up to an hour. Having someone there to make sure that those children are not crossing between cars and underneath cars in order to get out. So right now they're trying to figure that out. But currently we have 0 kids from the west side bus, or walking, I'm sorry, they're 100% bus.
So the best way, if you live in Dixon, is to get on the freeway, go down to the south exit, come back across on the parkway, go up.
So I did say.
They don't have plans to bus the kids on the other side of the tracks. Aren't they far enough away that they should be bused?
No, 2 miles radius is where you would have that. The
That's
one,
not 2 miles.
Well, so that's different than, that's different than. I thought when we were discussing before I left the city is my understanding was that just like.
There you go.
There we go. Just like, even though some of the west side is closer to Dixon than 2 miles, everybody outside of the tracks is bused to Dixon, that it would be the same thing, even though it's closer to 2 miles. If they have to cross the railroad tracks, know that the railroad regularly just stops on the tracks, so that was the plan, is that they'd have buses for everybody too.
so.
Like, that changed.
Yeah, so the way it was brought up to me was that bus that services like Julie Rash area or the Big Sunset that are within that 2 mile radius. Those guys, that bus is 100% paid for by the district. Because you have to be within that 2 mile. If you're outside that 2 mile radius, the state will compensate for that bus. And buses are super expensive. And they have a brand new superintendent that they're gonna announce here pretty soon. And that is, I guess, his call, not the school board's call, is from what they were saying.
And they just use that same bus that we were using on the west side to bus those other kids, because now we don't have a bus anymore, because we're gonna be
No.
close enough.
It depends on if they want 100% from that bus or not and where their finances
But they
are.
already are, right? So
They
couldn't
are.
just continue to 100% fund and back that up.
No, that's not in the discussion, no. That
That
is
doesn't
not,
make sense.
that is what was told. So what they want to do is our new Rob. His name is Vern. And Vern has a lot of experience with this. One of the things he does is he sits on, what is that railroad board? Do you even know that the safety?
I can't think of the acronym right now, but.
There is a railroad board that does safety, and Vern is a part of that. And so he wants to bring in the safety team to come in and present safe train crossing to the junior high kids, and then Terry asked for that to also be presented to the 6th grade kids that are Franklin and Timanogas that will be crossing that stretch. So right now, that's their game plan, is go ahead and instruct the kids on how to safely cross and get a crossing guard over there, so that to try to prevent kids from crawling under those trains or through between the cars. That is their number one concern. And then we do have the sidewalks that they're gonna put in, that they're going to put in asphalt sidewalks. So you're all aware. They're not gonna be concrete sidewalks, they're gonna be asphalt sidewalks.
On 1600.
Not on 1600, well, in the northern part of 1600. But not anywhere south of 6 South.
The city said that they were gonna try and put a sidewalk on the east side of 16.
Not for the safe
Before
routes
the
to school.
school.
That's not what was in the plan. At least
It's
there's
in the
no,
plan, it's not in the budget.
I don't know, the routes that I saw were 6 south on the south side up to, from 1600 west up to, not 11,
It's 1480.
no, it's only to the opening of Andrew's stuff, yeah.
Okay, we're 15 minutes over, so we're gonna need to wrap this up.
I'm ready. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. We'll stand adjourned until the next week.